What can I say about Super Mario 64 that hasn't already been said?
He said, let's get on with the demo. We're going to do something a little different than we've usually done. Instead of showing you a videotape, which we'll do later on, we'd like to give you a feeling of what it's like when people are actually playing. So we're going to do a live demo. I think the obvious choice is to start out with a demo of Super Mario 64.
It's me, Mario!
This game is much more wide open. You have full freedom to move around in a very large 3D environment. One of the coolest things about the N64, though, is actually the controller.
By selecting pressing up on the control stick, Mario will begin to tiptoe. By pressing up further, he'll begin to creep. Still further, he'll walk, and jog, and sprint.
Nintendo's newest release is causing a commotion. Most stores started selling the system today, and they've already sold out. Toys R Us had the largest shipment available to the public, and before noon, they were sold out.
This is going to be the system for the year, and it's obviously going to be one of those high-demand things. It's going to be extremely difficult.
The difference between this game and all the rest is in the name, Nintendo 64.
It was a game changer in the video game industry, being the first free controlling 3D game with full 360 analog control, where at the time games such as Resident Evil and Jumping Flash were controlled using tank controls. This was also the first time Charles Martinet brought his amazing voice to such an iconic character with his "Hello" and before Super Mario 64, the most personality and charm Mario had at this point was Super Mario 64 was the foundation of what 3D games would go on to be. Even the gameplay mechanics of Super Mario 64 are still used to this day in modern 3D third-person games. The main objective of Super Mario 64 is to collect stars and levels to fight Bowser. Defeating Bowser drops a key that leads to another area of the castle with even more levels. You repeat this process until you beat the final boss at the end. Now this sounds simple, but the controls and movement make the task of finding and grabbing stars so engaging. Super Mario 64 was, and still is to this day, crazy fun to play. The controls are snappy and responsive, moves like side flips, diving, and long jumps flow together so perfectly, it's like watching a tightrope act. This game genuinely makes you feel cool while playing it.
Damn bro, is that you? Nice, that's impressive. That's crazy.
The moveset of Mario 64 makes level layouts open-ended. There are points where you'll get a star and think, I could have done it a different way, and you can go back and do it your own way. You want to get the star in Want's Fortress? Well, you can do it the normal way. Talk to this red bomb to open the cannon hatch, jump in the cannon, aim for this wall above the star, and hope you don't miss and fly into the void. Or, you can pull off this wall jump and just grab the star. Another example, you want to get to the second floor of Boo's Haunt? Well, hunt down all 5 Boos across the first floor while avoiding the traps, enemies, and pitfalls, then defeat the big Boo in the main room. Or, you can just pull off this triple jump. Doing both the normal route and the improvised ones are both super fun. I love using the cannon. It's not perfectly precise, you need to aim slightly higher than you think to perfectly hit your target. And hunting down the Boos in Boo's Haunt feels like playing Luigi's Mansion. Each room is distinctly different to each other. Rooms with falling shelves, a living piano, flying books, a room where if you fall into a pit, instead of dying like you would in any other level to this point, you fall into a lower section where this creepy carnival music plays in the background. That area in Boo's Haunt was so scary to me as a kid, I would turn off the console if I fell down there. Actually, that story transitions perfectly into... In this video, I want to go over my experiences with Super Mario 64 from when I first played it when I was 5 to modern day. This game not only changed how I felt about video games and helped me grow as a person, but it was also with me through tough times. My goal with this video is to review the game overall and give it a rating at the end while explaining how certain parts of the game have cemented memories into my head for the rest of my life. One day in 2007, my father calls all of us to the living room because he's setting up our first ever video game console, the Nintendo 64. This device was crazy to me when I was 5. I was still at the point where life was walking around cross-eyed. My brain couldn't fully comprehend the world around me, let alone Super Mario 64. But I still had fun messing around with Mario's face at the intro and running around outside the castle for hours on end, laughing at Mario's slide. Peach's Castle has to be one of the most iconic places in gaming history. It's just as popular as Honor Orlando from Dark Souls or Dust 2 from Counter-Strike. The outside of the castle is pretty much the tutorial area of the game. There isn't any tricky platforming or high energy music to push you forward. It's just birds chirping and water flowing with trees spread around everywhere. This was all I needed when I was 5. I didn't care about collecting stars or trying to defeat Bowser. All I needed was to listen to Mario go, Yahoo! And Yippee! Now the interior of the castle. This place was magical. As a 5-year-old, you don't genuinely remember most things pretty well. Maybe the area you lived in at the time, or the restaurants your parents would take you to. But even to this day, I remember the feelings I felt walking into that castle for the first time. The colors on the walls are so vibrant, and the checkered floor still reminds me of a pizza place my parents would take me and my siblings to all the time. The castle is the main hub of Super Mario 64, each room leading to a painting which holds the levels in them. Some rooms require a certain amount of stars to open, which are labeled with the amount you need on the door to the room. Some doors had giant locks on them, and some had giant stars on them. These giant star doors are the Bowser levels that give you the keys for the locked doors. Of course, at the age of 5, I didn't even know how to enter a level until... Alright, I'm at the point now where life is starting to shape, and I can understand the things around me. Meaning I could figure out how to get into the levels. Though I don't remember how I figured out you were supposed to go into the paintings to get into the levels, I do remember my first time going into Bomb Battlefield.
Let's go.
Oh my god. The music, the enemies, the colors, the environment, and the mystery. What all of this game haven't I seen yet? It was like opening the pantry, expecting to find nothing to eat after opening it so many times, but then you open it one more time and it's filled with food. I'd been so used to opening the fridge and finding nothing again and again, so when I finally opened it and there were so many options, my jaw dropped. There are 6 regular stars and 1 secret star per level with a total of 15 levels. Some stars are right out in the open, while others are hidden and are only unlocked by solving puzzles, defeating enemies, collecting 8 red coins, or 5 secrets. Every star is named based on how to get them, so even as a kid it wasn't hard to think, bully the bullies. Oh well, these guys keep shoving me like bullies. So if I shove them back... I'm a genius, bro. The levels of the game are all so unique, but Bomb Battlefield is a war zone between the black and red bombs. Womp's Fortress is a giant castle full of womps with the Womp King at the top. Jolly Roger Bay is a slow but relaxing water level with a pirate ship on the surface and a terrifying eel below it. Finally, there was Cool Cool Mountain, which was a winter level full of penguins. Some were racers, some were babies looking for their mothers, and others were dead. Playing these levels blind as a kid was so much fun. You could turn a corner and there was a ton of new things to explore. I could collect any star I wanted and just move on to the next level to collect more stars that I wanted to collect. Everything was pretty smooth sailings until I reached the first Bowser level, Bowser in the Dark World. Like I mentioned before, beating Bowser dropped the key to the next level of the castle, allowing you to play more levels. So, for me to continue exploring and having more fun collecting the stars I wanted to collect, I would have to beat Bowser in the Dark World. The only issue? This level was hard as hell as a kid. This level was nothing like the levels before then. Normal levels of Mario 64 were open-ended, meaning if I couldn't get a specific star, since it was too hard or confusing, I could just explore and find more stars without an issue. But Bowser in the Dark World was a completely linear level. There wasn't any other options besides getting from here to here. This level has thin walkways, flamethrowers, moving platforms, Goombas everywhere, electric enemies that spin around crystals in your path, seesaw platforms, a button that releases steps on a timer, and finally, Bowser himself. This level was brutal as a kid. There were so many new things in this level that it was entirely overwhelming for a 7-year-old. I would constantly die and be set flying back through the floor to the hallway with the Peach painting that turns into Bowser. And with every death, I would start to get more upset and frightened by this painting of Bowser. It was almost as if he was laughing at me every time I failed and was sent back. I don't remember many fears I had at the time, but the 3 I could remember were the Bowser painting, sitting in the bath for too long and your fingers getting pruny, so I thought it was shrinking, and the first boss of Ocarina of Time, Queen Goma, which was just a giant spider that shot its babies at you, which is still scary. That's terrifying. Though the level was challenging, especially for a 7-year-old, I would eventually make it to Bowser at the end. At this point, I did know how to read, but I didn't read anything but the hints to the stars at the beginning of a level, so At the beginning of his fight, when he explains his weakness, I would just skim through his dialogue and dive headfirst into him thinking it would kill him. I would do this over and over again until I died and got a game over, sending me back to the bottom of the level. I just couldn't figure out how to beat Bowser, so I stayed here, stuck on the first Bowser fight, until I turned. I'm now a full-blown 3rd grader, and I had found a new passion next to video games: reading. I've always been a very competitive person, and it started out when I was a kid, constantly playing Mario Kart against my 2 siblings and my dad and losing every single race, thinking I could win this time. So when I was introduced to reading difficulties, I felt like I had to get far in it. I've heard different types of labeling for difficult reads, like some people would say they were labeled by color, starting from white being easy reading levels to red being pretty difficult for an elementary school kid. My school system was an A to Z system, with A being the easiest, examples being things like comic books or kid stories, and Z being full-blown stories like Magic Tree House books or the I Survive series. I was constantly at home or in class reading books like Dire Wimpy Kid or Captain Underpants, which were about mid-tier reading level. Now, how does this relate to Super Mario 64? Well, this same year, my dad comes up to me while I'm playing Mario 64 and plops down this baby right here. This guidebook was the sole reason I was able to get far in Super Mario 64 at such a young age. Even now as an adult, I still think this book is so special. Let me walk you through the magic of this book. When you get a copy of Super Mario 64, you will either get the cartridge alone or the actual box with the game inside. Let's say you got the case with the game. If you got the case, then you got to see this cool picture of Mario flying over the castle. Then when you open the case, you would have the art on the cartridge with Mario running away from Bowser. These 2 pieces of artwork are the only form of highly detailed Mario art you could find if you just bought the game. As a kid, your imagination looks at these and tries to put it over the actual game graphics, which kinda works. Now, if you were a subscriber to Nintendo Power in 1996, you would have been sent this guidebook, which not only had full renders of the levels explaining where all the stars are located and how to get them, but also full illustrations of Mario in the same style as the cover and the cartridge. As a kid, this was crazy to see. You flip the pages and get to see Mario checking behind his back or sliding across a wall. Craziest image at the time was this picture of Metal Mario. In the game, you could find a hidden level by playing Hazy Maze Cave and going down to where Plessy is. If you got on Plessy's back, ground pounded to get on his neck to his head, then jumped to this door over here, you would get to a secret level where you played as Metal Mario. In this secret level, you would find a green switch which unlocked all the green blocks across the levels. This green block would drop the metal cap, which turned Mario into Metal Mario. Metal Mario is immune to drowning, can walk underwater, and doesn't take lightning or fire damage. This power-up was not only cool gameplay-wise, it was also visually stunning. Most power-ups in the Mario series would change Mario's appearance by changing the color of his overalls and hat, or adding something to his outfit like a cape or wings. Metal Mario turns the entirety of Mario into metal. He doesn't even have any eyes. I remember playing Mario Galaxy when it came out and getting the ice flower and being like, whoa, bro, that's just Metal Mario, but ice. I'm getting a little sidetracked, but the main reason of bringing up this guidebook was this was the only reason I could beat Bowser. This page explains the mechanics of grabbing his tail, spinning the joystick, and throwing him into one of the many spikes around the arena. It took me countless attempts, but I did eventually defeat the first Bowser and unlock the key to the basement. With the help of the guidebook, I was able to find and grab most stars without any issues in the basement levels. The levels in the basement being Lethal Lava Land, Shifting Sand Land, Hazy Maze Cave, which I had a terrible fear of since Mario's animation of him dying from poison gas is super dark. My next hurdle to overcome was the second Bowser level, Bowser in the Fire Sea. This level felt personal at the time. It felt like this level was designed to make me mad. As a kid, and even to this day, I've always been a very impatient person while playing video games. I grew up playing Sonic games on my GameCube, so if I have the ability to beat a level as fast as possible, even if it means I will die and restart the entire level, I will always go for it. Bowser in the Fire Sea's difficulty comes not from just the spews of lava everywhere, but from the amount of time you have to stand there and wait for something. Wait for the beginning moving platform to slowly take you to the beginning of the level. Wait for the platforms to come out of the lava. Wait for an elevator platform to raise you to the next floor. Wait for the flamethrowers to stop shooting fire. Wait for Mario to slowly climb across the ceiling. Wait for the stairway to raise high enough for you to enter the third floor. Wait for even more platforms to come out of the lava. And finally, wait for these poles to raise up and down. Bowser in the Fire Sea would be too hard for me at the age of 8, so that's when I took my next big break, until By this point in my life, I had multiple video game consoles. I had the Wii, a GameCube, and a DS, so over the time it took me in my break, I started to get better at other games in other genres. I had a better understanding of how mechanics worked in games, and that most things I got stuck on were just tricky puzzles. Around this time, my dad gifted me Super Mario 64 DS, which immediately re-sparked my urge to beat the game. Quick side note, I just want to say that being told that I could play this game on the go to grandma's house every weekend was mind-blowing. I never really got far in DS since the new features, while very cool, were never that interesting to me, since you started the game as Yoshi, which I hated. The main reason I fell in love with Super Mario 64 was because of how Mario was controlled and how his moveset would flow so well, while Yoshi can... yeah. So after giving myself maybe a 6 to 9 month break, I finally decided it was time to go back and defeat Bowser in the Fire Sea. Just like the first Bowser level, it took me countless attempts to actually make it to Bowser, and even more to actually beat him, since in his second fight, he will tilt the entire arena one way, launching you into the lava. If you do fall into this lava, it is impossible to return back to the platform, instantly killing you. Thankfully, it once again only took one bomb to defeat Bowser, so after landing a crisp, clean Bowser throw, I was released from my torture, and I could finally continue to the next area. The second floor. The second floor of Super Mario 64 has the hardest levels in the game. Tall Mountain, Wet Dry World, Snowman's Land, and Tiny Huge Island were all very tricky levels with new gimmicks each. When entering the room with the paintings to Tiny Huge Island, you get to decide between 3 different sized paintings. Entering a painting will decide the size of Mario. So, entering a smaller painting will make Mario big, and entering the bigger painting will make him small. Snowman's Land had chilling water that would do damage over time like the poison gas of Hazy Maze Cave. Wet Dry World had you interacting with switches that changed the amount of water level in the level itself, allowing you to explore different floors of the fortress. And Tall Mountain had you climbing this huge mountain with pretty challenging platforming, including a giant wooden beam that spun you around when you stood on it, and clouds trying to blow you off the mountain. This is also the level with the monkey that takes your hat, which doubles the amount of damage you take until you get the hat back. That hat will even stay off your head when you die and exit the level, so you have to re-enter and find the hat. I don't believe I would have gotten anywhere near as far as I did in Super Mario 64 without that guidebook my dad gifted me. I was meticulously picking the easiest stars to get at the time to try and just open the next door. I would eventually collect the 50 stars required to open the third door, which at the time I believed would be the final boss, since the last 2 star doors led to boss levels. At the time, games would always play with the rule of 3s. 3 hits to beat a boss, 3 levels until a boss, or even 3 phases of a boss. When I opened that door and saw there was even more levels to play, I remember being so happy that I could play different levels. But after entering Tick-Tock Clock, I knew I wasn't going to beat the game yet. The last 2 levels of Super Mario 64 are Tick-Tock Clock and Rainbow Ride, which are unlocked by opening the 3rd star door in the game. These levels are very, very difficult compared to the past ones. These stars will test your patience and platforming skills. It's the last challenge before facing the final Bowser. The 4th and final star door was found past the 3rd star door and up some stairs. This star door required 70 stars to open. Though the door would stop you in place and tell you need 70 stars to open the door, it would still open, revealing a staircase that is never ending, unless you went and got the 70 stars required. I remember spending hours running up that staircase hoping just at some point bug or a glitch would happen that would let me fight the final Bowser, because Rainbow Ride and Tick-Tock Clock are still, now, me at the age of 20, super difficult. At this point, I had accepted that I wasn't good enough yet to beat the game, so I turned the console off and decided to give it another long break. I remember it being pretty close to my birthday since I'm a December boy, and I remember there being snow everywhere outside when I re-picked up Super Mario 64. At this point, I had gotten maybe halfway through Super Mario 64 DS, so I had been practicing over my break. The thing that pushed me to go back and finish the game was when my dad came home and bought me Super Mario 64 on the Wii. I tried playing that version for a while using the classic controller for the Wii, but it never really clicked as hard as the N64 controller did for Super Mario 64. Modern day, I have trouble playing with an N64 controller since I'm so used to playing it on Switch Pro controller, but at the time, Super Mario 64 couldn't be played without the N64 controller. They were made for each other. The plan I came up with to get the missing stars I needed to hit 70 was to go back to the old levels, and instead of going for stars I kept losing and not being able to collect, I would work towards the 100 coin stars, which are the secret stars in every level. I had attempted getting 100 coin stars back when I first got the guidebook, but I could never figure out how to find the last couple coins in certain levels. This time, I thoroughly read through the book and followed its instructions. After a lot of trial and error, I finally had the stars I was missing. Finally, the staircase stopped looping and I was face to face with the last painting of Bowser. It was the same painting of Bowser that haunted me when I was 7. I was ready to give it my all and beat the game. Bowser in the Sky is the ultimate challenge of Super Mario 64. Everything you've learned to that point is put to the test. This level will test your skills in platforming, patience, enemy knowledge, high pressure situations, and resource management, since there was a significant lack of coins. Take every gimmick you can think of from the last 2 Bowser levels and put them into one very long linear level. Moving platforms, seesaws, buttons that start timed staircases, flamethrowers, fire-breathing enemies, electric enemies that circle around poles, and tons of Goombas and Womps. This level also had brand new gimmicks like anti-gravity platforms that let you walk up walls, and wind that will push you off ledges and all the way back down to the beginning. Finally, after conquering all the obstacles and platforming in your way, you have to face against the final boss. The final Bowser fight still to this day is a challenge. Bowser needs to be thrown into the bombs around the arena 3 times instead of the usual 1. He'll do his normal moves, like spewing fire and hitting the ground to release shockwaves, but now he has a new move that changes everything. If Bowser is thrown off the platform, he'll jump back up and destroy a chunk of the arena, giving you less room to maneuver around his attacks and grab his tail. After hitting him into 2 of the 3 bombs, he'll destroy every last inch of the platform he can until you're standing on a giant star. This was one of the best ways you could hype up your final boss. This entire game you've been collecting these stars, some easy and some so hard, and now finally you stand here, face to face with the boss you've worked so hard to get to, standing on a giant star, the representation of what got you here. And then Bowser flies back towards the platform, landing on his back like he's done in the last 2 battles. You've finally done it. After talking to him, a giant star will spawn. The music stops, and everything goes quiet. You stand there with the last star. After taking a breath, you jump into it, like you've done 70 times before. You did it. Mario flies away with a wing cap, the first power-up you unlock in the game, and lands in front of the castle. The star releases Peach from her glass prison, and you have officially saved the Mushroom Kingdom and the princess. I wouldn't be surprised if at the time I stood up and ran to my parents' room to tell them I finally beat it. I remember watching the credits roll and dancing in the living room as the credits music played in the background. This moment in time is cemented into my brain permanently. The magic, the mystery, the challenge, the pain, it was all over. I was so happy to have finally beaten it, but I was also left sad knowing I had experienced all I could of this amazing game. I danced in the living room, tears in my eyes, both happy and sad. Even to this day, I will still get to the verge of crying when I hear the credits music play at the end.
Thank you so much for playing my game.
I'm gonna cry. Super Mario 64 is not just a video game to me. It's a part of my life. It's a part of the way I grew up. It shaped my thoughts on what types of games I like and what kind of difficulties I enjoy. It's proof that I could overcome something I thought was impossible. This game is the main reason I'm such a huge nerd today. Though this was the end of my first playthrough of Super Mario 64, it wasn't the end of my experience with the game. Years have passed, and I've played and beaten tons of games by this point on so many different consoles. We had moved to a new house, and I was put into a new school. I was scared that I wasn't going to make any new friends, and I didn't really know if I should be telling people I liked video games. I didn't know if I'd get bullied for it, even though I walked around wearing a Golden Freddy backpack. One of the first friends I made that year was a guy named Carson, a super nerd who was in the games like Geometry Dash and Undertale. Still to this day, we're super close, and one of the biggest reasons we even grew this close was because of our love for Super Mario 64, specifically the speedrun aspect. Carson had shown me how to play Nintendo 64 games on my computer in a very legal way, very legal way, of course. We would watch videos and practice speedrunning together. Then we would race each other's times to see who was better. Learning how to pull off new moves in a game I thought I knew everything about was so exciting. I wasn't that great at speedrunning Super Mario 64, but that year was the first year I sat down and 100% completed the game, which required getting 120 stars. That's 50 more stars than what's required to beat the game. Now that it was the future, I was able to watch a guide on YouTube on how to get certain stars, making the guidebook sadly obsolete. I started a new save on my computer, and over the span of a month, I collected all 120 stars in the game. Like I mentioned earlier, there are 6 regular stars and 1 100 coin star per level, making a total of 105 stars in the game. What I didn't bring up was the 15 secret stars hidden around the castle. There are levels like Peach's Slide, where you need to finish the slide to get a star, then go back and finish the slide in under 21 seconds to get another one. Some secret stars were found in levels with switches that unlocked power-ups, aka the wing cap, vanish cap, and metal cap. Beating the game a second time around, it wasn't nearly as hard to do since I had in general gotten better at games, but doing this 100% run made me realize just how much I still love Super Mario 64. Getting all 120 stars in Mario 64 is so much fun. It felt like I was going through the magic of the game again by finding new areas and levels I thought I knew everything about, like the igloo in Snowman's Land or the secret slide in Tall Tall Mountain. I still to this day will only do 100% completion saves of Super Mario 64. Even if I started a save to practice speedrunning, I would always end up just completing the entire game. Each star is so unique, and the more I played, the better I got at the game, making it faster to get all the stars. Since I was in general getting better at the game and learning how to speedrun, I decided it was time to start taking this seriously when I turned Carson had gotten pretty good at speedrunning Mario 64 to the point of using tasks, tool-assisted speedruns, which slow down time, allowing you to do inhuman inputs to perform glitches. Carson went from practicing simple tricks and glitches to full-blown, humanly impossible glitches. He would practice 1-star runs, which are insanely difficult to pull off. While he was practicing 1-star runs, I thought this was my chance to get better at the main category of Mario 64 speedrunning, the 16-star run, which was a series of glitches and tricks that let you get to the final boss and beat the game with only 16 stars. I practiced day and night. I would practice in school, I'd practice when I got home, I'd practice right in the morning before school, and I would learn techniques like the BLJ, bomb clip, cage jump. Real quick, I'm going to explain what the BLJ is, so I can portray just how cool learning how to speedrun Super Mario 64 really is. Without getting into the details of BLJ, BLJ stands for backwards long jump. It's a move you can perform by long jumping forward, then holding the joystick backward, continuing your long jump. Then, when Mario hits the ground, long jump again, but this time, he'll go backwards. If you time your jumps on a stairway, Mario will temporarily clip it into the stairs, causing him to launch through walls and doors. With this move, you can skip having to get 70 stars for the infinite staircase, and just launch yourself to the boss. Not only did I learn how to do glitches, I just in general got better at doing the movement. Pulling off things like the triple jump into dive launches Mario so far. Though I was getting better, and I could successfully finish my 16-star runs without even save stating, I never could catch up to Carson's skills. At the time, I remember being a little upset with myself, but overall, I was just happy being able to share my love for one of my favorite games with one of my best friends. Over time, we started to move on to other games, and our passion for Mario 64 speedrunning started to dwindle, but still to this day, I have not beaten Carson's time for his 16-star run. I will say this part is a little sad and kind of a major tone shift, so if you're not in the mood to hear about a breakup, then skip to this point marked on the screen. Without getting into too much detail, I was in a very long relationship with a girl I met when I moved to the new school. We dated for 3 years, and it didn't really end well between us. I was going through a lot of hard emotions, and I couldn't really find anything that would make me happy for a while. I was kind of a buzzkill when I hung out with my friends, and I felt like I could never feel any better. That is until I decided to sit down and hook up my Nintendo 64 to play Super Mario 64. This is going to sound super cheesy, and that's because it totally is, but Super Mario 64 helped me smile through such a hard time in my life. There were a lot of questions going through my head when the breakup happened that still to this day I never got answers to, but whenever I sat down and played Mario 64, my head would clear and I could just smile, and I could laugh. The music would sometimes even make me cry, but not because of the breakup, but because this game just makes me so happy. I can hardly explain it. It's not something specific like a level or Mario himself. It was just the overall experience of Super Mario 64. Mario 64 is like an antidepressant for me. If I'm going through a rough time with work, relationships, family, this game would pick me right back up and remind me that I'm going to survive and that things will get better. One day I'll be back to the way I was when I first played, or when I was playing with Carson. I won't have a care in the world and I'll just be happy playing video games. Sorry, that got super deep, but you know, it's one of my favorite moments of 2016, when overall that year was pretty bad, one of the worst years of my life. To think a game could bring me so much joy when things were at their worst really says something about the game. On a happier note, things got a lot crazier the next year when I turned. This year was probably the most I played Super Mario 64. I wouldn't be surprised if I played it maybe 6 times or more in 2020. Nintendo had been releasing the retro titles on Nintendo Switch via the Nintendo Switch Online service with games from NES and SNES. The games they re-released were so much fun to play on the go, but there wasn't any news about Nintendo 64 games coming to the Switch. I just remember thinking, if I could play my favorite childhood games like Ocarina of Time or Super Mario 64 on the go whenever I want, wherever I want, that would make my year. On September 3rd, Nintendo released a Mario Direct where they announced Mario-related games as a celebration of all things Mario. They announced the Super Mario Bros. Game & Watch, which were both Mario 1 and 2 on an accurate-sized Game & Watch. They were also going to remake 3D World on Switch with a new side mode called Bowser's Fury, a Super Mario Bros. Battle Royale where 35 people fought to see who was the best at the original Super Mario Bros. On NES, and Mario Kart Live Home Circuit, which is a little underwhelming in my opinion, but a very cool concept. All these games were more than enough to tide me over for the Mario Direct. I was so excited for the 3D World remake because that game is part of my top 25 favorite games of all time. I could make an entire whole video talking about my experiences with 3D World, but the last announcement of that Direct changed my entire world.
How is everything so far? The next one will be our last announcement.
It's me, Mario!
They had announced Super Mario 3D All-Stars, a collection of almost all of the mainline 3D Mario games in one package. Super Mario Sunshine, Super Mario Galaxy, and Super Mario 64. The final cherry on top being that it dropped in only 2 weeks. I remember breaking into tears and calling my friends, freaking out about that announcement. They gave me exactly what I wanted, and more. Super Mario 64 wasn't remade in 3D All-Stars, which I didn't really mind, since I think the original is amazing. But they did up the textures to full HD, making it the definitive way to play through the game. I remember being on a family camping trip and watching that trailer over and over and over again, trying to analyze anything I could, anything new I could find, because I was just so excited. 2 weeks later, the game dropped and I went to GameStop to grab 2 physical copies. I still have my second copy that I bought for resale that I'm going to sell in like 40 years. It's still in its package. Now, I know a lot of people have mixed feelings about 3D All-Stars, with issues like the price, Mario 64 not being remade in widescreen, and the pack not having Mario Galaxy 2 at all. But for me, all I ever wanted was just to play Super Mario 64 on my Nintendo Switch. I played the 3D All-Stars version every single day for weeks. I ended up timing myself every run to see if I could beat my previous time. I was completely addicted to the game for so long. Of course, this wasn't the end of my Super Mario 64 journey, because the next year, I'm now 19 years old and moving out of my parents' house. My dad had bought a house for my grandma to move into that was very close to their house, but she wouldn't be able to move into the new house for a couple months. I remember having to hype myself up to ask if I could live in the house before grandma moved in. I wouldn't just have my own space, I would also be preparing myself for the future for things like paying rent, saving money, getting groceries, After a discussion with my parents, I was given the okay. The house wasn't the biggest or the fanciest thing ever, but it was so nice to have the privacy and freedom of living on my own. The only issue I had was how empty it was. I moved all my items from my bedroom into the house across all the rooms, so there was barely anything in each room. The office had my desk and my computer and maybe a single shelf, while my room just had my bed and my dresser. Half the house was just completely empty. It was like liminal space. I want to preface that I'm not scared of anything like the dark, ghosts, or anything, but when I was living in that house, I would hear the house creak at night, and it was just so creepy. It was so creepy. I remember one night I was lying in bed getting ready to sleep when I heard a creak and had this thought: if an intruder broke in, it would just be me versus him. That thought scared me so bad that it made sleeping in that house for the first month pretty rough. I wasn't just sleepless, I also had to deal with rent and a constant 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. job to keep up with it. This was a very stressful point in my life. One day I came home from a pretty bad day at work. I was tired and sore since I worked a physical labor job at the time. I was both tired and restless because of my fears. So I got out of bed and walked into the living room to watch YouTube, hopefully to drowse me to sleep. That night is when I found the YouTuber Simple Flips.
First try, idiot.
Simple Flips is a Super Mario 64 speedrunner who grew his channel by playing hard ROM hacks for the game and Super Mario Maker 2. I was hooked on his content so fast. His sense of humor would have me chuckling for minutes at a time, and the ROM hacks he played blew my mind. It's crazy what people can do with just Super Mario 64's engine and assets. Of course, this reignited my love for the game again, and I would come home from work and chill out in the living room playing it on my Switch. Super Mario 64 became my go-to comfort game when days got stressful or I wasn't feeling the best. Mario 64 once again got me out of a really bad funk that I thought wouldn't go away. This was also the same year when I realized Super Mario 64, as much as I love and praise it, isn't a perfect game. I had been playing and watching it so often I started to notice and accept the parts of the game that just aren't that great. One example being Tall Mountain. It isn't just a difficult level, it's just straight up bad. Of course, in my opinion. Tall Mountain's main gimmick is climbing up the mountain while grabbing stars along the way. When you collect a star in Super Mario 64, you are sent back to the castle to pick another level. When you start Tall Mountain, you will always start at the bottom. So out of the 7 stars you can collect in that level, you need to climb the mountain at least 4 times. Both TikTok Clock and Rainbow Ride do the same thing, with there being 3 stars near the top of TikTok Clock and 3 stars being near the top of the Rainbow Ride. This level ends up being the longest one to complete, even if you don't die, since half your time will be spent repeating the same jumps and getting across the same obstacles. There are even 2 stars in the game that require you to climb to the very top. One of them, you just grab the star at the top, and the other one, you catch the monkey, and then it gives you the star out of the cage. They're pretty much the same star. They're the same star. If you haven't realized from this video, I love Super Mario 64. But over time, more and more holes started to appear, changing how I felt about the overall experience. At this point, I have 100% completed the game on all 4 save files. I didn't play the game nearly as much since I was in the middle of moving into the house that I currently live in, but when I did come back, it always felt so good to see those save files. My Super Mario 64 experience in 2022 was accepting the fact that pretty much every level past the second locked door are either okay or pretty bad. Once again, in my opinion. Tiny Huge Island is by far my least favorite level, with TikTok Clock taking the second worst. The layout of the level is annoying, with there being tons of ways to fall down, causing you to restart your climb up. There are stars in areas with pits that lead to death, so if you miss a jump, you'll just have to restart all over again. The biggest gripe I have with it is the 100 coin star. It takes the longest and is by far the hardest one to get all 100 coins. There's an area inside of the mountain of Tiny Huge Island. Inside are both red coins and blue coins. Red coins give you 2 coins each, and blue coins give you 5. These coins are required to reach the 100 for the star, but the area inside the mountain is full of tricky platforming, bad camera angles, and pitfalls into death. I don't know how many times I've fallen into the pit and had to restart all 100 coins. Wet Dry World is probably my favorite out of the second floor levels, with my main issue being how slow it is. Controlling the water is a fun gimmick, but over time it starts to get annoying. You need to raise and lower the water constantly to reach different areas. Example: Star 3, aka Secrets in the Shallows and Sky, require you to find 5 secrets hidden around the level. These 5 secrets are hidden on different layers of the main fortress, meaning you need to change the water level constantly to reach different areas to get different secrets. It becomes very repetitive and very, very boring. find a switch, change the water level, grab the secret. Find the next switch, change the water level, find the next secret. Rinse, repeat 5 times. I want to talk about my feelings about the 2 hardest levels in the game, Tick-Tock Clock and Rainbow Ride. Both of these levels are very challenging, having tough platforming, harder enemies, and trickier stars. I think the reason I struggle so much on these levels comes down to my issue with patience. Tick-Tock Clock's platforming speed is randomized when you enter the level, meaning sometimes the platforms can be fast, turning and raising quickly, or slow, or even just not moving at all. Rainbow Ride is mostly good, with there being sections you can beat fast using good maneuvers and skill. But 4 of the 7 stars require you to ride a carpet into the sky to grab them. This carpet is extremely slow, and when you jump off of it, if you don't jump on within a certain small time limit, it will just disappear. Both of these levels could be way more fun if I just took a second to think before I jumped and let the carpet take me to where it needs to go. But I just can't do that. I can't. I need to go fast. I need to do triple flips and dives all the time, or else I will feel microseconds of boredom. Just microseconds. It's too much. So I'll miss jumps, die, and repeat for hours on end, never getting a star because I can't be patient. It's not the level's fault, it's my own. From an objective standpoint, looking at these 2 levels, they're both very good levels. Just like the other levels in the game, they're super unique from each other. Rainbow Ride takes place entirely above the clouds, which is just visually so cool. With there being giant flying ships, there's a castle, there's a mini obstacle course, and the carpet ride, as much as I hate it, is so unique. It's so cool. Magic carpet ride on rainbows. That's such a cool idea. Tick-Tock Clock's design is very annoying, with there being platforms that move super fast at random. But maneuvering around these platforms make you feel like you're actually in the intricacies of a clock. It makes sense that these things are turning and moving. It's a clock. That's how it works. Things are supposed to twist. Things are supposed to pull out, push this way, do this, this, and that, all these tiny little things. It makes sense. My opinions over the years have started to dwindle for aspects of the game, and I've come to terms that this game isn't perfect in the slightest, but it doesn't mean what it does overall is bad. This game is still amazing, and part of my top 25 favorite games. But just like every other game, no matter how much I like it, it's not going to be perfect. So, how do I feel about Super Mario 64 today? Well, I still love the game from the moon and back, being one of the main contributors to my hobbies and dreams with video games. The game has gotten me through rough patches through my life, but has also caused me rage from multiple levels over the years. The game gave me my first taste of completing something difficult and getting over that wall you never thought you could get past. This game is not perfect. It's not the best game ever made, and it never will be. Hell, Super Mario Odyssey proved they could do the same movement as Super Mario 64, but even better. Though it has its holes, it's still an amazing experience that I recommend to people of all ages and skill groups. This game is the perfect way to start getting into platformers. I'd say Super Mario 64 is an 8 out of 10 for me. The game is fun as all hell, having one of the best feeling movesets I've ever felt. The levels are vibrant and unique, with their own gimmicks giving the game life and never dulling the fun. The level design is open-ended, and most stars can be completed any way you see fit. But levels also have glaring issues, like slow, repetitive gimmicks, raising water, or waiting for platforms to move. There's unforgiving platforming that leads into pits, wasting tons of times, and most 100 coin stars are slow, boring stars. The only reason 100 coin stars feel good to do is because you finally got 100, but getting the 100 is not fun. I highly recommend finishing the game if you were to play it for the first time. I love 100% completing Super Mario 64, but that's my personal belief, being someone who constantly dies, losing all of his progress because he just won't take 2 seconds to jump on this platform, and I will just hit continue and play again. But as a general game standpoint, for someone who hasn't played before, I think you should just play the levels you find fun and avoid the annoying things. Go for the stars that you think sound like fun. If there's a star you're stuck on, you don't have to get that star. There's 50 stars in the game you don't have to get. I love Super Mario 64. I wouldn't be surprised if I ended up playing this game every single year for the rest of my life. It's always a thrill to come back to and relive the moments I had as a kid and a teen. If you haven't played Super Mario 64, please give it a shot. You can take your time and go for the stars you find fun. There's no reason to force yourself to do things like 100 coin stars or red coins. Make your own fun and try figuring out ways to get stars the unintended way. Making your own solutions is insanely satisfying. Super Mario 64 will always be the game on the shelf that I pause and think, I need to play this again. Thanks for watching. and I'll see you in the next video. Hey, if you enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a like, comment, and make sure to subscribe. This is a new channel I'm working on now. I'm going to be releasing video essays every maybe 2 weeks or so about old games, about new games. Next one will probably be about Mario Wonder, since that's coming out soon. I will be completing it normally, and then I'll be 100% completing it, so it will either be 2 reviews or 1 very long review about both aspects. But you're not going to want to miss it, so subscribe. Thank you, thank you, thank you, bye, thank you.
Thank you so much for playing my game.